Yeah, come in.
Kids, listen, I just finished playing this game. I gotta tell you all about it.
Jesus Christ.
Again?
I'm thinking we need a category of games that are along the lines of B-movies. You know how we've got A-list films that have significant budgets and marketing and seasoned talent behind the camera, and then we've got B-movies that have their hearts in the right place, but maybe not the money or production values or any sense of professionalism during production? Don't get me wrong, I do love me some B-movies, kids. Some gloriously trashy flicks that are fun despite themselves, or high-concept flicks with low budgets that get real creative in order to see their visions come to life. Some B-movies are honestly really fucking good, like Kung Fury and Blood Machines and The Void, films that make the most of accessible technology and Kickstarter backing and limited releases to get their flicks made. And while they might not have the same high-quality special effects and big-name actors or directors, by God, they are wonderful to watch. And so we should stop pointing fingers at games that have some technical limitations, or glitches that pop up here and there, or a lack of high-resolution graphics. And we should instead look at the game experience itself, how it plays, how we felt while playing it, and if we enjoyed it more, then we're frustrated by the flaws that bump their heads against us. I propose we call them B games. Games that aren't super polished and don't have AAA production values, but by God do they slap. I just finished playing Nosferatu, Wrath of Malachi, and this game fucking slaps. It's spooky month, so I obviously had to play some spooky games in order to celebrate the shifting of the seasons. The rising mists, the low whispers of the wind at midnight, the rustling of dead leaves dancing across the ground, the full moon glowing like an angry, baleful eye. And picking the right scary games for Spooky Month is like choosing between children. Actually, it's not really difficult. I don't know why that phrase even exists. We all love our children equally as parents, but there's obvious favorites for different reasons, and if I'm picking spooky games, I know exactly which ones to go to. But I'm not here to show favoritism. I'm here to talk video games. So sit your asses down, kids, and we'll hop on this haunted train. And when we're done here, go visit my brother Pancake Detective's channel. He's doing some spooky Let's Plays that I'm looking forward to, and I can't wait to watch myself. Pancake Detective is your unofficial gaming uncle, since I'm your gaming dad. Civvy11 is your other uncle, the one we don't talk about. You know, the one on your mom's side of the family that everyone speaks about and quiet whispers, even though we know he's in some high security prison somewhere for breaking some kind of lesser known federal law. Right, so anyways, I've been sitting on this first person horror game, Nosferatu, Wrath of Malachi, for a while now. Like most games in my Steam queue, I bought it and I promptly forgot about it because I just never got around to it, but since I need FPS games for Spooky Month, Nosferatu stuck out like a rotten pumpkin, and boy oh boy kids, am I glad I picked this one to start with, because if my other spooky picks are this much fun, it's gonna be a good fucking month. Nosferatu was developed by Swedish studio Idle Effects and released in 2003 for the PC. Idle Effects has an interesting resume, being that they developed only 4 games during their brief time as a studio. A cutesy kids horror game called Gast, something called FBI Hostage Rescue, Nosferatu, and the absolutely abysmal Drake of the 99 Dragons, which is considered one of the worst Xbox releases of all time. Today, if you Google search for Idle Effects' website, you will find porn. I don't recommend doing so because A, your mom is downstairs and she might walk in at any second, and B, there are plenty of other better sites to find porn when your mom isn't at home and she can walk in at any second. Still, this is a fascinating history, as Drake of the 99 Dragons released 2 weeks after Nosferatu did. That's fucking wild. I can't find much info on the studio or whether or not they had multiple teams to work on these 2 games simultaneously, but anybody who's played Game Dev Tycoon knows that releasing 2 games in the spans of 2 weeks is really not a good idea and stretches your resources super thin. Still, it seems as though most of the QA went towards Nosferatu, as this is a hell of a game that shines despite some janky flaws and some really weird design choices. Is that Is that Comic Sans? Why is this in the Matrix font? Why is this in the Matrix font? Why is the number 5 why is it backwards? What? Is that Billy Corgan? Despite some very clearly early 2000s Eastern European oddities, Nosferatu wastes no time with the intro. You play as James, traveling to Transylvania for your sister's wedding to a Romanian count. The whole family will be there, which you're excited for, but you arrive a day after the rest of the family to an ominous atmosphere and mysterious circumstances. Something at the castle is not right, and whoa, what the fuck?
Oh, James! The pain!
Holy shit, dude, did you just fall out of that window? Like I said, the game wastes no time hitting the throttle. That's Father Avil, friend of the family, and he lets you know that the count your sister is supposed to marry just so happens to be a vampire. A vampire with intentions of resurrecting an even more dangerous vampire named Lord Malachi. You're tasked with roaming through the castle, searching for family members to rescue, and return to the castle's entrance, which acts as a safe zone. When Father Avil tells you to find the doctor because he's only got half an hour to live, he means it. There's a clock in the upper corner that moves forward in real time, meaning that certain events happen at certain times. Also meaning if you dawdle too much, take too long to find your family, people will die. And the more people that die, the stronger Lord Malachi becomes. Making this even more fun is the fact that numerous vampire-related enemies are roaming the castle grounds, some of them requiring specific weapons to kill. James is just an average human being who can and will die real fast if he gets into close combat without regard for self-preservation, and his weapon loadout is spotty at best. You're gonna need everything at your disposal though if you're going to get the family through the castle and back to the safe zone. Otherwise they're all gonna end up sacrificial fodder for Malachi, and you'll have an even worse time dealing with that. Nosferatu is pretty short, maybe 3 to 4 hours depending on how you play, and I blitzed through this game real fast, partially because of the brevity, partially because the goddamn thing sucked me in and refused to let me go. Holy shit, this game is fucking intense. The constantly counting clock adds a layer of terror simply by existing. Father Avil was right. He only had half an hour to live. I didn't find the doctor fast enough to save him, and when he died, I was treated to an ominous cutscene which not only informed me that the father was dead, it did so as a nursery rhyme, all while distorted images and haunting music played in the background, while filling up a strange dome full of blood. Malachi had his first sacrifice, and in that really simple demonstration, the game let me know it was really not fucking around. From that point forward, I felt the urge to keep a steady pace as I frantically searched through the castle, searching for humans to save and return to safety. I don't remember the last time I was thoroughly on edge the entire time I was playing a game. No joke. There's a photo album you can bring up by pressing tab to give you an idea of who's been saved, who still needs saving, and who has died, a constant reminder that there are very real stakes on the line. Adding to the immersion of the proceedings is the fact that while the castle itself is broken up into 3 separate areas to explore, the entire castle itself is one large hub that loads as you progress. So as you find keys to open up locked doors and gain access to new areas of the castle, moving back and forth between them is a mostly fluid experience, and it really draws you into the idea that you're actually really exploring one giant castle. One of the benefits of bringing the family members back to the safe zone are the gifts that they offer. In the safe zone is everyone's luggage, which can only be opened by the family members who own the luggage. You'll get neat shit from weapons to potions that offer positive status effects to a protective vest that cuts down damage you take. The absolute best out of all of these is Buster, a faithful canine companion who will, as the game puts it, defend you with his life. And that's literal. Buster will jump at enemies and chew at them and put himself in front of you to take damage, and he can and will die if you're not careful. I probably could have shaved half an hour off of my playtime if I hadn't kept quick loading every time Buster died protecting me. Human family members dying? Sure. I can take that. That's a part of playing the game, but Buster? Buster's too good for this world. We had a great tag team strategy. I would hold up my crucifix and stun the vampires while Buster attacked them till they fell. Buster is a good boy. Buster deserves better. So when Buster dies, we quick load and see to it that he doesn't die. God damn it, you are the best boy, aren't you? Who's a good boy? Nosferatu's main gimmick is pretty simple. Search the grounds, find family, escort them back to the safe zone, kill anything that's not human along the way, stop the Count from resurrecting Lord Malachi. Seems pretty simple. James has a variety of weapons, starting with his cane sword and Father Reveal's crucifix, as well as a single-shot flintlock pistol early on. Combat is fast-paced and fraught, as James isn't exactly a death-dealing marine ready to wade knee-deep in the dead. Your cane sword doesn't do a lot of damage, not nearly as much as the flintlock, which can kill most enemies in a single shot, but the flintlock takes forever to reload that single shot. Combat then becomes a quick thinking strategy of stunning vampiric enemies with the crucifix so that you can get the flintlock out to shoot them. There's a few enemies who are immune to the crucifix, such as the demon dogs and the hypnotized farmers with scythes and flintlocks of their own, so you'll quickly learn who is weak to what. There's also some shadow vampires that are only affected by the crucifix, so the best strat is to always have the crucifix out and be ready to switch to something else. Oh, and always make sure your pistol is loaded ahead of time. If you swap weapons and the flintlock isn't loaded, the amount of time it takes to load can and will screw you over. Eventually, James finds other weapons, like a revolver that fires quicker but doesn't have the same stopping power, a chalice which can carry holy water and basically one-shot every supernatural enemy. You'll get a machine gun late in the game, which is a godsend. And there's a plethora of wooden stakes lying around, which are absolutely essential for dispatching vampires, and you can also use them as torches to light your way. Come to the end game, James will have a wicked arsenal to choose from, but even as the game throws ammunition at you left and right, the deeper you go through the castle, you're still going to need to be careful, as James can and will die real fucking fast. Getting swarmed by enemies can and will happen often, leading to frustration if you're not on your toes. What's really neat about Nosferatu is that every time the game loads, items and enemy placement are randomized. Even the placement of the family members is randomized to a certain extent. Specific family members are relegated to specific parts of the castle, but the rooms they're being held in can and will change with each load. While the castle itself has the same layout and room structure, what you'll find in those rooms is completely up in the air. So if you round a corner, stumble into 3 or 4 vampires and devil dogs, and you die, when you reload, those specific enemies won't be there. Maybe something else will, maybe nothing will. Same goes for the items. There's chests all across the castle that you can open for prizes, but once you hit the load button, the contents will change. It's a really neat, really interesting mechanic that serves to maintain the tension in the gameplay. Adding to this are the intentionally janky, twitchy graphics that look like all the animations had a few frames removed to give them an unnatural feeling. You remember those old stop-motion flicks that were animated by hand, how their movements looked normal but felt manipulated? That's the best comparison I can think of with the animation here. It looks hand-manipulated, just smooth enough to make it playable, just off enough to feel like something is a little wrong. There are a couple of the family who are being held captive by vampire mini-bosses who have their own cutscenes. I really enjoyed these encounters, even though they were tense as fuck because I was worried that I was going to accidentally get a family member killed. But after a quick boss fight and one rescue later, you'll be tasked with tracking down the mini-boss's coffin where they're regenerating. Find it, put a stake through their heart like Van Helsing, and you get a message letting you know you've permanently dispatched one of the Count's underlings and they won't be coming back. You usually get a key to unlock a new part of the castle after this, but just the act of tracking down their coffin and staking them is so fucking cool. It is one of the most rewarding parts of the game. And holy fuck, the atmosphere here. The game is positively dripping with atmosphere. First, I gotta give credit to the aesthetics. This game looks, feels, and sounds like a 70s horror flick. It gave me heavy Italian horror vibes throughout, with the film grain that covers the screen, the lighting effects through the windows and the fog, the architecture of the castle itself, and the music. Holy fucking shit, the music is incredible. Staccato violins, screeching strings, low thumping drums, piercing piano notes. If the visuals don't sell the notion that this is paying heavy homage to 70s horror, the soundtrack will. It maintains a constant flow throughout the game, rising and falling as you move from relative safety to intense combat. You'll get little cues to let you know something deadly is nearby, which is even scarier than hearing the monsters because usually you can't see them, and you'll start searching around frantically. Or something will pop up from the floorboards to grab at you, and the music will leap into action, perfectly timed. If there's anything about this game that can be considered perfect, it is the score, and how well integrated it is. Let's have a few listens. That all being said, the game really isn't exactly perfect. So we've got an interesting combat system. Guns that need time to reload versus physical melee attacks. The risk and the reward. But Jesus, I really wish that the physical attacks could have had a better sense of range. I constantly felt like I was trying to figure out how close I needed to be for the cane sword to hit. And in the opening hour or so of the game, it's really easy to get overwhelmed by the creatures roaming the ground. Another combat mechanic involves James's stamina bar, which goes up every time you do anything, from walking to swinging your sword to running. If the bar fills up all the way, James becomes sluggish and can barely stumble about, which only adds to the sometimes frustrating nature of fighting vampires. Getting dogpiled with a high stamina bar means not being able to get away to recover or reload very quickly, and then next thing you know, you're vampire chow. Rescuing family does make the going easier, as receiving their gifts will grant you some serious boons, but it never makes the hit detection any easier to get around, especially when bumping into objects with too much force can cause you to go flying into the air. I can't tell you how many times I opened a chest and walked forward to grab the contents, but doing so sent me up and over the box like I was a speeding truck hitting a bump in the road. Up and over and bounce and down, and that's really not good because James will take falling damage from the slightest of falls, even from 2 crates stacked high. Momentum can be a huge problem in the game. I one time went down a staircase and the momentum of going down the stairs sent me flying forward so much that I slipped off the stairs and fell to my death. Another time while going down the stairs, I went a little too fast and Buster came running after me to catch up, and he took falling damage and died from it. I got stuck on walls, I got stuck in narrow walkways because one of the family was blocking me from moving. I got stuck in an area with a low ceiling that I should have been able to walk through just fine, but it was just low enough and the catwalk was just at the wrong angle. I thought for sure I wasn't going to make it out. All of these things are negotiable on their own if it's just you wandering the halls of the castle, but when you need to escort family, it gets tempestuous. The family AI isn't the smartest, and while they will follow you with dedication for the most part, if you pass through a door while far ahead of them, and the door closes before they get to it, you're gonna have to open the door again and make sure they're still with you. Sometimes, if they're close enough to the door before it closes, the door will reopen automatically and they'll stay hot on your tail. But I had a lot of times where someone just stopped where they were because I went ahead too fast and I had to backtrack to get them. Couple that with trying to navigate multiple family members at the same time, and you could end up gritting your teeth a lot as you do your damnedest to shepherd them along. Simultaneously, leading 1 or 2 family members along and then entering a particularly ominous area of the castle immediately raises goosebumps. Family can die at any time when they're with you, and the already heavy tension becomes even heavier as you realize you might be walking into the shit of it, and you've got 2 very vulnerable family members right beside you. Even with all the difficulties of escorting people around the castle, it didn't really cause too much frustration because I was far more focused on the immediacy of the vampires lurking around every corner. Every step taken feels like it could be the wrong step. Every door open feels like it will open into a den of vampires. The atmosphere of dread is so thick, so well constructed and layered that the minor glitches and wonky physics are mostly easy to brush off. There are little moments of dread, like the game warning you when midnight is an hour away, and when the bell finally tolls the hour, you're told that the darkness grows stronger after midnight, which empowers all of the vampires around you. After exploring a certain percentage of the castle, or discovering certain family members, the clock zooms forward all the way to dawn, and any family member you haven't rescued by that point are sacrificed by the count. Rounding the corner into the finale of the game, exploring the final section of the castle at dawn, my nerves were on fire, stretched tight as the game started throwing multiple vampires at me, and tons of ammo as I made my way to the count, whose look is based on Orlok from the 1922 Nosferatu film, and it was fucking terrifying and intimidating. If you die here at this point, you get a horrific ending cutscene that tells you that you were the final sacrifice to empower Lord Malachi, and now he's been released on the world. Once I finally figured out how to dispatch the Count, I had to face off against Lord Malachi himself, who, depending on how many of the family have been sacrificed to empower him, is either going to be a bit of a breeze or an absolute tank to face down. I was lucky. I only lost 4 of the family members, and I had a machine gun and holy water, and that was that. The ending movie is kind of hilarious, this. James is shown in shadow standing over Malachi with a pair of rifles crossed over his back like he's goddamn Ash from Evil Dead, and it's all heroic and triumphant, and it's a little silly, especially considering that the Count just sacrificed your sister, and no matter what you do in the game, no matter who you look for or find, she always will get sacrificed, which is kind of a downer. Nosferatu, Wrath of Malachi is 100% a B game. It uses a lot of neat graphical tricks to make the game look better than it probably actually does. It crafts an incredible atmosphere and gameplay experience while not being incredibly polished, and is an absolute blast to play. I breezed through this in just a little over 5 hours, and I was sucked in and engaged the entire time, captivated by the tension and the terror. It may not be a high-budget extravaganza, but it's entertaining as hell and ridiculously enjoyable. I'm going to give Nosferatu an 8 out of 10. This was a blast, kids, a complete surprise for me. I was coming down off of the disappointment of Deathloop, and I wasn't sure what to play to get my interest back. But boy, oh boy, did this little gem do me right. And to kick off Spooky Month, I couldn't think of anything better than a classic vampire story with rich atmosphere and high tension. Check back in next time, kids. There's a whole lot of spooky left to get through this month, all leading up to a special Halloween episode that I just can't wait to show you. Go get yourself some candy and make sure you tell your mom I said you could. I'll see you next time, kids.